Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on WSMV4 Plus. I am Danielle Ledbetter, and we got the opportunity to speak with a licensed professional therapist, and she gave some tips for parents on how you can create emotional safety for your children as we have been dealing with just a lot of disruptions with the winter storm last week, causing power outages, putting kids out of school. So she says she knows that has a big impact on children and how they kind of maneuver throughout their day. So before we get into her tips, I do want to talk about the power outages because that's one thing that Trisha mentioned, as like a lot of people are dealing with those power outages. I'm going to pull them up now. We know NES says that right now, I'm pulling it up right now, over 25,000 people are still dealing with power outages. And Trisha says, that's the name of the therapist that we spoke to, that this is causing, of course, families to be in close quarters, hotel rooms, or staying with friends. And again, that puts a big stress on not only adults, but your children as well. So again, she gave us some tips on how to create emotional safety for your children. And her biggest tip is to create consistency. So let's hear from Trisha now.
Even in one hotel room, if you're all bundled together or you're at friends' homes, you can still create some consistency. So one idea is to say the same bedtime story that you have usually said. Maybe come up with a mantra that you say every morning and every night, just to give their brains some idea of normalcy.
And how do you create that sense of consistency? Or let me ask this rather, why is it important to create that consistency?
So children's brains are desperately trying and kind of surveying around for safety. And when they can lean on something that feels normal, and for us as adults too, then our nervous system begins to balance and we begin to feel like we're a little bit less anxious.
And so that was her first tip for creating emotional safety for your children. But the second tip she gave us, practice sensory activities. So even in a small space, you can still look at your child and say, well, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? And that kind of engages their sensory ability and also lowers cortisol, she says as well. Now, the third tip, instill alone time. Now, an interesting practice that she gave us through this interview when we talked to her, she said, even if you're like in a hotel room, you can turn your back to each other and that'll just signal to your brain, hey, we're getting some alone time right now. So that was one of her tips as well. Tip number 4, she says, offer clear yet loving boundaries with your children. So, maybe your kids want to play, but you're tired. She says you can use things like both and statements. Hey, mom is tired, and I understand that you want to play, but mom is also tired. So she gave us that example as well. And then her last tip for creating emotional safety while your kids are going through such a major disruption with either not being in school or dealing with power outages or whatever the case is, she says, as a parent, ground yourself as the adult. So do the things that you need to do to make sure that you are centered and grounded as an adult. So some tips that she gave for that, she said, move your body to boost dopamine and to lower that cortisol. Even if you're in one room, she said you can do some push-ups, you can balance your leg, run in place, do some chair lifts, but that will help to bring some of that stress down in your body and to help you better show up for your children. And she also talked to us a little bit about why that's so important to ground yourself as an adult.
This is a hard one right now because if you're in close quarters, there's not a place to go. But I have really encouraged parents in the last couple of days to just be aware that your raised voice and your anxiousness is going to bleed off onto them. Children co-regulate off of their parents. So if they hear mom and dad or whoever talking about the house or the tree that's fallen or we don't have power still, and they feel that anxiousness, it's going to raise that in the home also. And so it's going to raise it in the room. We want to try to lower that energy. So what I've encouraged is go in a bathroom. Go in the lobby of the hotel, go in the car and sit in the heat for a second. That will also provide you some alone time, and you can also then have those private conversations as much as possible, just so those little ears don't hear everything we're saying.
And as we are talking about school being disrupted, I'm going to pull up now some of our school closings and delays. So today, it's still early to tell about tomorrow, but today we know that Allen County, Benton County, we know Metro Nashville schools are closed today. Davidson County, I just mentioned them, our Metro Nashville schools rather. We know Lewis County, Macon, Christian. You can just see the list right here on our website. If you need to go check this out for yourself, this is on our website, WSMV.com. But talking about school closures, not fully knowing when kids are going back to school quite yet, Trisha also gave some tips on how to prepare your kids to return after such a sudden break. This was a disruption for a lot of people. And so how to kind of get yourself back acclimated into that structure. That's what she talked to us about. So the first thing she said, affirm your children's big feelings. She said children, they may have a range of feelings as they're going back. They might be sad, they might be anxious, whatever those feelings are. She says, affirm them and then shift your perspective. Third, she says, review your routine because we've had a lot less structure over the last week. Going over the schedule can give your children just the security and confidence they need to face the day. Her fourth tip is go to bed early. She says you probably want to start bedtime an hour before that actual bedtime. She says because, again, we haven't had that same structure for the last week, it's going to take longer for kids to get back into the swing of things. So that's her fourth tip. And then tip number 5, she says be aware of children and their listening. So we kind of just went over that. She says if you have some really heavy things to discuss or topics to talk about, try to not have those conversations in front of your children because children really pick up on that stress, on that anxiety. We understand it is a stressful time, but it's not something that you want to be bled off onto your child. But let's go ahead and take another listen to some other things that Trisha had to say. Again, she is a licensed professional counselor and a registered play therapist as well.
They're weary. They're tired. They're tired. They're over it. They're a little done, and they're just really kind of ready for this to all go away. But there's also so many unknowns. I've heard a little bit of some guilt, like, oh, I know I'm letting them watch too much TV or too much iPad, and I'm trying to relieve parents that it's okay. It's okay. We will transition back, and we will get back to routine, but relieve some of that guilt that we carry as parents that is so draining for us.
So again, you just heard from licensed professional counselor Trisha Thornton, and she was just outlining how parents are feeling right now after such a major disruption. Kids out of school for a week, so that's a major disruption, not only for adults, but also for kids as well. So if you're just now joining us, she outlined a bunch of ways that you can create emotional safety for your child when you're in the midst of such a disruption like this, whether are you without power, some people without water this morning. We reported that on the news.